Alright, so today's challenge for a car is looking for one that is about €1,000 and see if I can find a car that I actually really like. Now the thing is, I always want to go with Volvo because that's where I feel like quality is really nice and I like a bit of a heavier car but still sedan. Because simply put, it just feels better when driving, right? You just feel more secure on the road. Potentially thinking about a Mazda 6 as well. I know they're a little bit lighter and they have a lot of rust issues when it comes to those cars. So do keep that in mind. Also, thank you, Scooter. But do keep that in mind when it comes to these cars. Like Mazda does have problems with rust. Volvo has its technical issues every now and then, depending on the car. And of course, it depends on who's driven it. But often they are quite reliable in my own experience, especially when we are talking about a little bit of the older generation, where not everything is electronic. Because damn. Anyway, when it comes to cars, we're just gonna check out a little bit and see what I can find. Potentially we'll go back to Volvo, but we'll see. It's just, right now, we're just gonna look around and see if we find anything that is really nice. Alright, so this is a nice looking car. It's a Volvo S60 2.4, 140 brake horsepower, which is fine. It's a 2002, again. I really like this color on this car. It needs a little bit of work on the rubber around the car. But I think this car, in terms of design, has aged really well. Still think it's a beautiful car. Driven this, beautiful. Also has the newer logo version here. The previous one had Volvo written here and it didn't have this line right there. Really like it. Like the steering design itself. Like this as well. Just in general, their interiors are one of the better ones. It doesn't, of course, come originally with this, but I'm fine with this. I probably would have put a display on it, but I know those cost like €600 or something like this. It is a manual. I prefer, of course, automatic, but you know, it is what it is. Interior wise, I really like these cars because simply put, there's like a connection from here to here to here. It just feels like a unit all together. It just feels like it's one thing, designed to be like a fluent transition from every single part. A lot of history with it, as you can see here as well. Some things that are done with the car. So we're probably gonna check this one out, and if I end up buying it, we're gonna find out. So, did I get the car? Obviously I did. Let me introduce you to my new Volvo S60 2001 2.4 140 brake horsepower. Alright, so recording with my phone, but quickly some discussions what I really like about cars like this. For one, Volvo cars like this are very, very solid, really well made. I love the interior design itself. Yes, there are better ones, and that definitely isn't what you get with the car itself. This is better in terms of course, what it does, but in terms of design, not. So I'm thinking about replacing that with a proper display. Of course, I'm gonna replace this because simply put, this one is broken. I'm gonna see what I can do just in general with some tweaks, because this gray look I don't necessarily like. And of course, when it comes to these trims, I really like the design, but they have quite a bit of wear on them, as you can see here as well. Not to mention these things. Roof itself is really solid, really soft, really nice. This is really solid, really nice as well. It feels really, just really well built. In general, the speedometer needs some work. Right now, for instance, you can see this is hardly visible. This shouldn't be that hardly visible, but it is. So this is probably going to be replaced. And if I'm going to replace it, it's going to be that R design type. So you have this silver or blue ring, depending on which version you get, on it, which I'm probably gonna go with silver. I feel like it fits better because this is clearly not an R design. Also, in terms of the steering wheel, this I will fill up. So you have this blue mark here.
My brother's the same with this V60. But you had an older version when it didn't have this rounded cutoff, but also where it was written Volvo, which is definitely worse. Also, of course, we have some damage here. But when it comes to the car itself, I do have to say, while it's really solid build, while it is well maintained, especially when I look at the documents for it, it does have, of course, 423,000 kilometers, which you cannot see because, well, maybe you can see, but the display is really dim. But when it comes to the car itself, I really like this style of car. I really like the seats in these cars that are so good. I've sat in several cars in Volvo when it comes to, especially when it comes to the second-hand market, where you buy a car that is quite a bit cheaper, like this one, 1,000 euros. I got this for 1,000 euros. You definitely get seats that are far more comfortable than anyone out there. I know people love the BMW, Mercedes and so on, but this has the far superior seats, and I die on that hill because it just simply does. It has really good support, it sits really comfortably, and I think Volvo does an excellent job when it comes to their seats. Not to mention, of course, when it comes to their, of course, whole interior design, what I really like about the philosophy of not current Volvo, because again, when it comes to the Volvo EX90 and the EX30, their interior is shit. I also like the V40 probably the best, which has a digital dash. Some don't, but most of them do. A digital dash right here, which is actually really cool looking without it being too, how do you say it, too BMW Mercedes-like, where it's kind of showing off. But what I also really like is that everything feels connected. There's a whole movement going on from here to here to here to here to right to the back itself. Just everything is connected. Buttons are easily accessible, knowing where you need to be. It's really handy. Yes, some again have, of course, the dials right here when it comes to at least the S60. The S80 also has that, but when it comes to the newer versions, they have it in the middle there because simply put, some people, of course, use their phone, and if you do that manually, you just press in those numbers. But yeah, this, when it comes to these kind of cars, I really like just the solid build, the possibilities. The seats are so good. They already tell you that the seats are amazing, but it is an older car and it does need some love before I'm really ready for it. I'm gonna change the headlights, gonna change that, and I'm gonna see what I can do when it comes to these doors, because that carpet looks not only bad, but also in terms of just it letting go, it needs work on the front and back. Anyway, that's my new car, my Volvo S60. I will say, when it comes to the turner circle of this car, that's not the greatest at all. That's the part where I will say, oh yeah, that could definitely be better, because bloody hell, that turning circle is not great, but it does help and is definitely a benefit when you're driving long distances. It feels like you need to correct less. Therefore, it has its ups and downs, I guess.